Hello, welcome, assalamu alaikum, listeners to The Real Story. My name is Mr. Ali and I'm your host for this evening. Welcome to the show, and what a show is going to be. So, we have had young people telling us that we are now on the brink of World War III. People are walking around with a dark cloud over themselves, and it was only right that we now discuss a topic that has been headline news for over 2 weeks, and that is whether Iran and the United States of America are going to go head to head and have a World War III. And this is what we are going to be discussing today, and I have in the studio alongside me Brother Zaid, who is going to help me navigate this particular topic and get to the bottom of what is happening on the international stage of politics. So, as you know, the situation that we find ourselves is long-standing, and for a long time now, both America and Iran are tiptoeing and are going head to head with potentially devastating consequences, not only for the Gulf, but for the wider world. And previously, when we thought there was going to be a middle ground with the signing of the JCPOA, for those of you that don't know what that means, it's all about the nuclear treaty that was under the Obama administration. We thought now that this is something that we are going to see the end of. The whole differences, the division that we see in the Middle East is going to come to an end. But unfortunately, just when you think that hope is near, it's going complete pear-shaped. So that's where we are. That's what we are going to be discussing, and it is no easy topic to discuss because there are so many angles, there are so many factions to this particular debate, and of course we haven't even mentioned Saudi Arabia, Syria, and of course Europe in the conversation yet. So that's where we are. So I'm going to now ask Zaid. So it is a very complex situation, but on the face of it, when the whole thing kicked off about 2 weeks ago, were you fearful that we might end up with another war in the Middle East?
Thank you, Mr. Ali. Indeed, actually, it is a very complex matter to discuss with, because there are so many angles of whatever is internationally now we are seeing, we are witnessing. But I think the circumstances and the tension in the Middle East, especially with Iran and America, it's quite complex at this stage. But again, I may be wrong, but I think there may be not a full-fledged war. That's my observation is. If as you in your introduction you said it's quite complex. Why it's quite complex? If you will see, there is no match of warfare between Iran and US.
Yes.
The Iran's strength is proxy,
guerrilla warfare.
Guerrilla warfare, proxy, like in Yemen, Lebanon, and these sort of things. So that will not affect mainly to USA. So that is the reason I think that the assassination of General Qasem Soleimani. Why? Because that General Soleimani was the hero of that proxy.
Absolutely.
And so now that's why they targeted him.
So I think your analysis is spot on. I think at the moment we have one superpower in the world, which is the United States of America, and militarily, and the amount of money that he has spends on his defense budget is astronomical, and no country comes anywhere near it. China is getting there, but is still significantly way off. So any chance of a head-to-head war between America and Iran is definitely out of the question. So I agree with Brother Zaid. The only thing that Iran will do is play to its strength, which is having a proxy war in countries like Iran, Iraq, and Syria. And this is where General Qasem Soleimani, who was the head of the Quds and the Revolutionary Guards, which was deemed a terrorist organization by the USA Trump government, they were within their right, according to them, to take this person out because he was so good in what he was doing, where he was traveling across the whole of the Middle East and he was causing factions, getting alliances and causing small but strategic decisive blows.
I would say
to the
it's absolutely right. If you will see, all the holy shrines in Iraq were protected by General Soleimani.
That's right.
And who pushed Daesh or ISIS from Iraq and Syria was General Soleimani. So we should consider his role under all these scenarios. But I think, if you will see Trump, it's a look. We not. Although there is a now resolution in Iraqi parliament, look, all foreign forces should go. But Trump is saying this one, we are not leaving.
No.
Because we have a big investment. We
Absolutely.
spent a lot of money to build up our bases.
That's right.
But I think the actual investment is oil.
Absolutely, you can't move away from that, and the whole situation is very fragile anyway.
Yes.
When you have lost so many lives and you have invested so many billions of pounds, and at this moment, United States is above international law, whether it's United Nations or the humanitarian law. They will not, at the behest of the Iraqi government, leave at this stage. They will leave when it suits them, whenever that may be. So I think the Iraqi government are very naive if they think that just because the Iraqi government passed a resolution that they are now going to see the armed forces of the United States pack their bags and their rifles and go catch the plane back to Washington or wherever it may be. That is out of the question. So I suppose now, General Qasem Soleimani, absolutely, I agree with you, was a fundamental player and a stakeholder in getting rid of Daesh, both in Syria and Iraq. And at that time, I suppose the Western Alliance needed, because they knew about Qasem Soleimani's
and the movement and what actually he is doing there.
What he was doing on the ground. And last year when they, President Trump again took the whole credit of removing ISIS and devastating ISIS from the Gulf area, took the credit for himself, and he knows now that they are a force of history now. He thought, no, he is surplus to requirements. Why don't we take him out? Is that something that they may have thought?
Mr. Ali, what you think about that theory, which saying this one? Look, General Soleimani actually was on a tour to convey some sort of a message to Iraqi Prime Minister and the government, so that look, the tension between Saudi Arabia and Iran and the other players in the region should be reduced, and there should be some unity. And because this is another theory, that's what I'm saying. This is quite complex. They're saying Soleimani was actually playing a very a big role to just bring up this one. So
we know there is a bit of a tension in terms of the Sunni and the Shia sort of conflict between the two countries, but I think that's been overplayed. Actually, at the moment, I think the division has been caused by outside external agencies, and America is a big part of that, because in the Middle East it suits their need and their agenda to have division and war, because then spending on their defense goes through the roof, and Saudi is one of the biggest customers of United States sort of weaponry. And it was actually confirmed, Zaid, in terms of that Mr. Major Soleimani was conveying a message to the Iraqi government in terms of the healing process and the Iran and the Saudi government coming together. So that was confirmed by the Iraqi government. So he was there on official business of the Iran government to get the forces together, and also the proxy war that is going on in Yemen, for that to be reduced. So I think if there was that was being confirmed, it serves America's interest for the current status quo to remain, where Iran is seeing Saudi as a big enemy, and vice versa as well.
And what is your views on this one? Is there any chance of this regime change? Because we see that after this Ukrainian planes disaster, and now we see that there are some agitations in Iran, and on top of it, if you will see this one, that it's some sort of a big plan. It's look like if you will see now that Trump is actually tweeting in a Persian language.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
oh, wow.
Persian language is.
Oh, yes, I see. I hear that.
And,
that's right.
and encouraging those demonstrators that look, you are brave people.
The only thing I will say is we know what President Trump's integrity is all about. The way he has completely dropped the Kurdish, the Kurdish population in terms of how they were doing well in Syria, and they said, look, we're not going to be backing you now no more. So I think the people that are protesting, they should do it off their own backs if they want to, but not on the behest of President Trump, because he is no one's friend. So let's get that clear at the outset. But I think the whole situation, if you look at it now, because you have the reality, but you also have the perception on the international stage, and I think this is where Iran has played a massive own goal after the plane was shut down by their own military personnel. These days, everything is on satellite, everything is captured.
Yeah, you can't conceal anything.
To fool the public, and you have someone who who's impartial, Justin Trudeau, the Prime Minister of Canada, saying, look, we have evidence, and why wouldn't you come out? We had the Foreign Affairs of Iran coming saying it can't possibly be our military. Our weapons are not guided for civilian planes, but only for military planes. And even I was thinking, okay, there may be an element of truth. Yes. But when they finally admitted it, unfortunately, any sympathy that I had for the Iran government and the regime went out of the window. So I think it was been very mishandled and very But at the moment now, the countries that were affected by it saying that the Iran should pay full compensation to the victim majority, which were Iranian dual citizens. Yeah. And the main thing is, if you can't protect your own citizens, then what good are you as a country?
Well, another aspect which I would like to bring into your attention, that's the role of our foreign office here, like in the UK. What do you think? Are you satisfied about the conduct of UK government during this process? Our Dominic Raab's statements and our Prime Minister's statement, how they are, it's look like they simply towing the USA statement. Yes. They don't have their own foreign policy.
I think we have to be clear that UK is in a very isolated figure now, because it's no longer part of Europe, or will be from the 31st. At the moment, it needs a big trade deal from America, and we know how temperamental President Trump is, and no way would you want to upset him. So it made sense for the UK government to back Trump 100%. And at that time, when this all kicked off, Boris Johnson was still on his holiday. He didn't deem it fit enough or urgent enough for him to come back. And we had the Foreign Secretary Dominic Raab, as always, playing the hero and trying to be a big man on an international stage, and said that UK government is not going to shed any tears.
It's look like now this one, the fundamental values which were actually very icon for our English system.
Absolutely.
We are actually now drifting away from that for our some sort of a financial gains. Look, yeah, we should not, make Trump angry, because if we will make him angry or cross, we will maybe we will not be able to actually get a big trade deal.
That's right. Well, unfortunately, that's the situation that we find ourselves, and it's very precarious as well. So I understand why they are tiptoeing and why they are completely 100% back in the United States and America, because there's nothing to be gained by even being impartial or siding with Iran. So strategically, they know where what side their bread is buttered. So let's make it. But I think at the same time, I think in terms of us being unique and having our own ethical foreign policy, I think we're far removed from that, and I personally didn't like Dominic Raab's rather staunch position on this, where he said that, I'm not going to shed a tear because Qasem Soleimani has killed British armed forces. And I would say to the wider media, public, and also to Dominic Raab, and which was then further reiterated by Boris Johnson, if that was the case, then why didn't the UK take out Soleimani then?
Yeah.
He was there to be taken out, and he was a legitimate target.
I will take it in a different angle, because obviously there is no evidence to support this version. Like this is same like when we were saying this one, Iraq is having a weapon of mass destruction, and now now the Gordon Brown, ex-Prime Minister, actually he said the Pentagon knew that Saddam was not having a mass. So this means if you say that he killed the Iraqi, British or American soldier, then why you are cooperating with him when he was pushing the Daesh?
Absolutely. So I think this so-called mystery evidence that the United States has, we all know what sort of dossier or what sort of evidence they rely on. So it's not in the interest of the wider public, based on compromising their intelligence. So they're not going to show us, and we're not expecting to be seen. But at some point, the United Nations and the international justice has to intervene, because if we all start, taking out, making international assassinations, where is it going to end? Someone might think that Mr. Blair. Someone might think Mr. Bush, someone might think Mr. Trump. These are legitimate targets because they have blood on their hands, and they'll take them out. This is not the way international affairs work and civilized society works.
Another thing which is quite alarming, as you said in your introductions, that the role of international organization, including UN.
Yes.
We don't see any active roles during these crises, and on the other hand, the Muslims organization like OIC and the other things, I don't see their meetings or their statements or anything. So this means, this is a world. Might is right.
That's right, and I think that's the message that sends out to everyone, is that if you are a financial and a military power, then you can act with impunity. You can do whatever
you like to do.
And in one way, that is a very bad signal, because then regimes like Iran will be thinking that the only thing that will save us is being a nuclear power, because at the moment America and its Western forces are doing whatever they think is right, regardless of whether it sits right with international law, with justice, and without any evidence. They can do whatever they want. And so if you put your shoes or your hat on the Iranian government or any other government, such as North Korea, why wouldn't you have a nuclear power and protect yourself from whenever United States has you in their sight?
So this means world will be more unsafe because of all these scenarios. And this obviously now Europe is also start saying this one. Look, there should be a new nuclear deal between Iran, and that could be the Trump deal one. So this means they again saying whatever Trump is saying this one. So we
so at the moment,
is there any possibility of any new deal?
I tell you who is really beating the drum of that Trump deal is Boris Johnson, because we know that Trump is a bit of a megalomaniac. It's all about him. He doesn't want anything which has the label of the Obama deal. So whether it's the same deal that's just been sort of, over-labeled by the Trump deal, I don't think he cares. He just wants a deal that it says Trump on it. And the fact that Boris Johnson is now also backing that is a very bad signal, because what it means is, which was a perfectly legitimate deal, and also the United Nations nuclear watchdog was saying that Iran was adhering to that deal, I think is dead in the water. And the reason being is, if the United States is not agreeing to it, unfortunately, they have said anyone that's going to be dealing with Iran, we are going to put sanctions on there. The Western countries such as France, Germany and UK haven't kept their side. They've agreed and said, look, we are now not going to have the wrath of Trump, and we will then also sort of stay back. And they are now saying to Iran that you are not holding the deal, when Iran is saying, look, we're reacting to this because Trump has moved away from it. How can we stick to the deal when we are now being penalized by sanctions?
And another thing which I was thinking, you can tell me a bit more about this one, a role of Pakistan. Because our foreign minister actually visited Iran, met the Iranian president, and then from there he went to Saudi Arabia, met foreign dignitaries, and then Oman, and then now he is going to USA. So you think that Pakistan is in a position to play any role, or it's just like, to me it's just look like a monkey's effort? I don't think so.
I think Imran Khan is an international statesman. With that comes a bigger responsibility. But at the same time, I think, especially after that great speech on Kashmir, and how we all have a responsibility to come to the aid of Kashmiris and abide by the United Nations resolutions, when you are asking for countries to side with you on justice, on legal obligations and on human rights, then you have to do it for all.
For all, yes.
And you would have thought then on this particular issue, where, you have America on one side, you have the Western powers, and you have the Saudi government as well. It does take a very brave person, and I think this is where Imran Khan thought that his own reputation, his own relationships with these leaders, and also the future and the security of Pakistan comes first.
Yes.
So if you are a Pakistani citizen, you are thinking, I need to be secure, and I need to have my own welfare and my own business and trade relationships with these countries secured, rather than trying to fight and argue for other countries. So it was a very delicate tightrope that he was walking.
I think one thing which is quite good, and I appreciate this one, which armed forces and the government, they clearly said, look, we will not allow our soil to use for any other country, because we paid extremely heavy price for that. But I don't think so. That is a one aspect. But I don't think so. Pakistan is in such a position to play a very vital role in context with Iran and USA. On the other hand, we see this. Look again, Malaysian Mahathir Mohamad, he simply said, look, this is not the time that the Muslims should unite. Is it that possible? I think it is not possible until they start trading oil into different currency.
Absolutely.
Which is not going to happen.
That's going to happen. And those people that have previously talked about that happening, we know what's happened to them.
Yes.
So I think it will take a very brave individual or a leader to start talking in that sort of language again. So for me, the OIC and this unity that we talk about within Muslims, I think we need to just get rid of that, I think, in a sense, because it's never has and never will step up to the plate.
But
I think when it's not there, we won't keep on complaining and we won't expect anything from there. Because at the moment we keep on talking about unity. When it was a Kashmir issue, we know what happened with the Saudi government and a lot of the Middle East countries. Because they look at their own internal affairs and they don't look at the religious background of each country. And I think there's an element of this here. Everyone looks after their own strategic interest, irrespective of who it is. So I think it has become a bit of a talk shop. It's a good a photo opportunity for a lot of these leaders. But if we're expecting them to make a meaningful statement and then see it through, that's not going to happen.
Yeah, it's true. I got the same feelings. It's got on papers we say this one. Yeah, we are a ummah, but character-wise, we don't have those characteristics of those ummah. But I think still, the player in that region, like Saudi, Qatar, and Iran and Iraq. I think at least they should come together on some sort of a common terminology to have a safe region. Because it is important for the sake these millions of common people who sacrifice their life in Iraq. So what is the outcome? For what?
For what? Absolutely. No, absolutely, I agree. Unfortunately, millions of lives have been lost. And if you look at the situation in Iraq, certainly from a slightly outside viewpoint, I don't think anything has improved. If you ask the Iraqi on the ground if their life is better, maybe pre-Saddam and post-Saddam, very little has changed in terms of their security and the sacrifices that they have made. I think there's a lot of people that would say, look, things haven't improved. Moving forward, I think at the moment, I think there's nothing there that is actually unifying the whole of the area. Iran is still with Lebanon, Syria and Iraq causing destabilization and getting that packed together. Then you also have Saudi Arabia with Qatar, UAE and a few other countries. So they've got their own block. And I think for the time being, you will continue to see those divisions being played out on an international front. And then at the same time, you have Turkey as well, very powerful country. But again, they are, President Erdogan is, trying to be a bit of a playmaker and trying to be a reconciliatory figure when it needs to be. But I think he realizes this is a tough job, and he's also got his own problems. At the moment, I think everyone is far too busy looking at their own national security and the national interest to be trying to be an international peace broker.
Yeah, I personally, Mr. Ali, think that although the things are very, dim and chances of this peace is very dim, but I don't support that terminology or a phrase which is using World War III.
Yes.
I don't think that will be happening. No. So again, every country got its own national interest now, and that is the reason why I think that.
And also, Zaid, I think President Trump is very astute. He knows where the line is as well, and he knows who he can pick a fight with. You've got countries like China, Russia who are doing far worse. India as well, I would put in that
yesterday
bracket.
They struck a deal with the China trade deal.
And I think this is a kind of a bargaining chip This is a negotiation process whereby, he has that love-hate relationship when he was threatening to blow President Kim Jong-un, and the next day he was saying he's my best friend. This is for him. This is nothing more than a boardroom negotiation that he's doing, and he knows, at what point that I should pull back. So I think, if you look at it, people think he's a fool, and I think you've got to give him some credit because he knows when to step back. And when
on a lighter side, what do you think? He's in a position to win the second term?
I think he will, because at the moment from the Democrats there isn't a real strong figure. And one thing I must say is with the impeachment, that's not going to go anywhere.
It's not going
to go anywhere. But his supporters are going to get more fervent, and they will back him even more. So I think he's seen as a strong international leader. The economy of America is doing well.
I also.
And one thing is, most of the other leaders now, like Boris Johnson, know what President Trump is like, and they know that if you give him a bit of an ego boost, he's happy, and they will then play up to that. I think all in all, I think it's a big year for President Trump. Come November, I think you will see him serving a second term.
Yeah, I also am of the view that he will win that second term. Obviously, and on a international, he is portraying himself. No, I am the only leader, can do whatever I want to do this one. And now I also of the view that Afghanistan situation, I think maybe Trump will strike a deal with the Taliban and will pull out from there.
And negotiations have been taking place
and they are in a very sort of a very advanced stages now. So it means, and if you will see this one now, the Taliban actually release some of their prisoners.
It was very close a few months ago, unfortunately, when there was a big bomb blast. You can second guess as to who may have created that, but at that time the deal was just about to be signed, and I think the American administration pulled out this. Look, we can't be seen to be signing a deal when a big bomb has just gone in Kabul. So this may be the year where we have the end of the conflict and the pulling out of troops in Afghanistan, and it'd be interesting to see the role of Pakistan and India here, because they've used Afghanistan as a bit of a proxy as well for the.
I think in one of your other program we should actually discuss in length the situation in India. What is happening there, and especially this Citizen Amendment after the Citizen Amendment Act, what is happening there. But one thing we have to give some credit to the public there. They are out.
That's right. They have shown their disgust, the outrage at this discriminatory law that has been passed, which is affecting the Muslim. You talk about a racist law that discriminates one faith over the other, then this is it in the 21st century. How can the largest democracy in the world allow that, and then try to defend it? And you have hundreds and thousands of people across all the states of India coming to the streets and voicing their displeasure. And you have people who may be 80, 90-year-old, never had any form of ID, and potentially they could be expelled from India and be seen as an alien, i.e. as a illegal immigrant.
Yeah, but I think there are not two possibilities now. Obviously, if the Modi government actually comes out of all this, how maybe do some more amendments or take this bill back. So then obviously the secular status of India, maybe it will reinstate. If not, which is will be very alarming for Indian state itself. If you will see the things which I was referring in back, look, the people, Christian, Hindu, Sikh, every secular minded person is out on the road.
Absolutely.
That was very inspiring. One you say that the Muslims students were praying on a road, and their non-Muslims they were protecting them.
Absolutely.
So this means still, if we work together to protect the humanity, and that should be the main goal of everyone, every government.
That's right, every government. And it does come from the top. And I think this also restores our faith that the normal person on the street wants to live in peace, wants to get on with his neighbor, and wants to protect someone practicing their religion in their own way, as long as it doesn't harm anyone.
Yeah, yes.
And all faiths by and large do that, and this is what we need to communicate in 2020. Is we are in a precarious situation. There's a lot of hotspots across the country, across the globe, shall I say, across the world, and I think this is where President Trump and United States of America have a great responsibility because of their might.
Right.
You know, if you are going to be calling yourself as the freedom of leading light of hope and justice, and you are going to be seen as the international police statesman, then you have to be impartial. You know,
yes.
You have to be seen as white and non-white, and you have to treat each situation on its merits rather than having your own agenda and your own interest at the heart of your
you need to use your might to resolve the world problem.
Absolutely.
Not to create more problems.
Absolutely, absolutely. So in that sense, we have also seen that organizations like OIC, United Nations, you also have the EU, where their level of influence is getting less and less. Like now, when America did kill Qasem Soleimani, they didn't tell any of their Western power alliances, didn't tell the UK government, despite our special relationship. So, we've just got a few more minutes left. But so I just want to summarize in terms of what do you think this year and beyond holds on the international front. So this is where I think that at the moment we have a lot of small fires happening, and if we're not careful, those can be ignited into full flame. Yes. We all need to realize that we have a responsibility to make sure that we keep humanity, we keep our international legal obligations at the front, and if we see something that is wrong, we call it out irrespective of who it is. So I personally think that United Nations needs to revisit who they are, why they were created, and how they can function in the 21st century, because at the moment it is, I think, is defunct and is not fit for purpose.
It is indeed.
Your final thoughts about
I will say, as I previously said, earlier said, that look, all these international organizations now, they should revisit the purposes and preamble for which they actually were formed. So they should use that might to resolve country's problem, not to create more problem. And only the fundamental target will be to just work to give dignity to this humanity. We should work together. We can't resolve these sort of issues by a single hand. So we need people. So when we can, if we can make alliance to do some destructions, why can't we make alliance to do good things?
Absolutely.
So that's my message from the stage of this program. Let's work together for peace, harmony, humanity. That is my message.
Great message of hope by Brother Zaid here. And in 30 minutes, I think we have covered all of the international global affairs. So thank you for your insight. And for me personally, I think for those viewers that are watching, let me reassure you, let me allay your fears. There is not going to be a World War III, certainly not. Because of what happened by killing General Qasem Soleimani. That was just another pawn in the proxy war that is taking place in the Middle East between the Saudi government and the United States against the Iran bloc as well. So, unfortunately, the real victims are those people that were shot down in that plane that was going to Ukraine, 176 of them, and we now have their family and the students protesting in Iran. Will this be a watershed moment for the people of Iran to open up its affairs and not to engage in this autocratic, in this rather theocratic kind of government, and be more open-minded and democratic, and give every citizen their human right? So it is a very precarious position. But on that note, what I will say is, I still think that the value of humanity and the sanctity of life still prevails, and always when we come to the brink, we tend to come back. So on that note, thank you for watching, thank you for listening. I hope you found the program useful in terms of what is happening in 2020 on an international stage. And thank you once again, Brother Zaid, for your insight. And we look forward to bringing the real story to you once again next week on another topic. Thank you very much.